Hey everyone, and welcome to Spilling the Spirituality. And I am here with my pal Rev Rob. How are you doing, Rev?
Hello. I'm doing great. It's yes, a good morning and it's bright and fresh. It's summer still, so yeah, doing well. How about
Awesome.
you?
I'm doing well. I got my chamomile tea here because we're recording in the morning today. Happy to be here. And just want to let you know I might freeze up. And if I do, it's because I'm in a strange location.
Strange being a very wonderful, relaxing location with full of sky and water.
So what are
But
we talking about today, Rob?
we've had many conversations about spirituality and spirituality in our daily lives, which is how this stream and podcast has come to being. And one that I know has been part of your life is when we uh, become involved in this spiritual existence. It's usually because we've seen something, heard something, either a talk or speech or a recording of someone who really, really resonated with us. And it's almost like when you attach to somebody the first time you fall in love and you think that that experience, that crush is love. And that is the guru syndrome. And it's been in the mainstream public eye for a while now, sort of nefariously, but also it also examines why we attach ourselves to people when we follow them, and when we are able to uh, see that what we've learned we can see within ourselves. I said to you so often, you're your own guru, and when I know that you followed people, or when you were listening and sought the answers directly from that source, then it would always give me pause, or want to reinforce that those answers that you have yourself, and the best teachers, the best authors are ones that help you see that rather than have you rely on them for the answer. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And I am a big um, victim of guru worship. I want to say I'm 54 years old now, and I'm just coming out of this guru worship or putting people on a pedestal. And I want to say it's not even just spiritual people. The way our society is designed, I definitely feel like, people like the Kardashians and
Right.
the different presidents, everyone thinks that they're the person and they follow what they do and they copy everything that they do, only to then see later that they're just humans and they're very
Right.
fallible. And
Right.
yeah,
Well, I mean, and it exists in our social media now. I mean, really, there are people that make careers out of being quote unquote influencers. So they are literally influencing behaviors. The reason they have that title is because whatever they're doing influences people's behavior, and from a marketing standpoint influences people's behavior to buy and products that are sponsoring them. So you
yeah.
know I think it must be a tendency of ours to attach ourselves to information or ideas uh, that that seem to represent people that we want to emulate, so
Yeah, and we can't blame ourselves for that because if you think about People magazine and like all of those, tabloids and things that are always sitting in the front of the grocery store, it's like, hey, copy me, look at me, I'm
right.
so great, I mean, we were really programmed this way from the time we were kids. So that's how I give myself a pass with the whole guru worship thing, because I really do think, with TV, with media, we've been taught to look up to these people. And
And I think with spirituality, you have the added a component that we're told that certain people are the ones that have access to the source, the divine. And so when they speak, they're the ones that are speaking on behalf of that source or divine. And even if you've come from an organized or established denomination where you're told that the priest or the rabbi has the answers about what God thinks, it's hard to kind of let go of that, especially when chances are, if we have shifted from our childhood spirituality to another one, it's because someone else's ideas have appealed to
Right?
us, and so
Yeah.
it makes sense to us to think that that person has all of that information. And again, as I said, I think the best ones teach us to look within ourselves for the answer. So
Right.
I'm gonna look for the receipts from you. So what specifically
So of course
are
I've been through like at least 10 of these examples, but I
your
don't want to.
serial guru worshiper?
Yes, for a very long time. And to be fair, I do think people watching this might be able to relate to this. When you first start getting into this work, you're looking for someone to heal you. You're looking for someone who has all the answers. And that's kind of the place that I was at. So I guess the example I would share today is, I went to a spiritual teacher for about 10 years, and he was wonderful. I learned so much from him. It was really, I think I had just turned 30, and it was really my introduction into spirituality, and my whole world changed from knowing this man. He taught me so much. And as I grew with him, I started to think when I would come, every other week for a session, much the way people do with therapists. And I started to think probably 5, 6 years in, wow, I don't agree with what he just said. Or, gosh, that doesn't really sound super spiritual. Like that sounds pretty egoic. And I started to notice more and more of that. And he was a pretty well respected teacher in our area. I knew lots of people who had gone to him. And then one day I was in his office and I posed another idea, another way of looking at things. And it set him off and he got angry for some reason. And he like stood up. We both, when he would counsel with me, we both sat in chairs, and he
Mhm.
got up from his chair and he got really big, and kind of came uh, over me. Like I remember him standing over me, telling me that I was absolutely wrong. And the issue that we were talking about was karma and whether we believed in it or not. And I don't need to go into all that. But I said to him, "You're scaring me. Why are you yelling at me? Like this is just an idea that I had." And he just got very upset. And we had more of these. At this point now, I was becoming a life coach and I was leading groups in my home. And I started to really have a sense of knowing of how to do these kinds of things. And I just started to feel like he didn't like that. He didn't like,
Ah,
maybe I was possibly knowing as much or perhaps even a little more than the teacher. And so I ended up having to let go of this teacher and walk away. And it was mostly because of that. It was mostly because it had become uncomfortable because I felt that we had shifted and maybe we were more equal now, and he did not want to see me that way. But I have to say, looking back, he was the one that woke me up and put me on the map.
right, right.
He was just showing a piece of himself. And I could tell you probably every year for the next 15 years, I encountered someone like that where I would like fall in love with them, fall in love with the idea of them, tell my family everything I learned, and like try and copy the way that person was in the world. And you were a big help to me because you would always try and say, well, what do you think? What do you think? You know? So what are your thoughts or experiences on this?
So I have a version of this, which is I feel like when I learn something from somebody and they speak words that resonate with me. I attach myself to not only them, but how they're living their lives. I've always been big on, well, are they, I'm assuming that if something you say makes sense to me, that, we're all the same, or, we want only to speak words of love, or we want to, create a specific, consciousness or behavior. And, you hear, that someone doesn't necessarily behave in that way that aligns, or you are part of an experience, like you said, where, someone is now kind of exercising a position that they're implying is superior to yours. Then, that's when I get either uncomfortable or I get disappointed. I have a pedestal version of this, which is when that happens, I don't necessarily just go, we're thinking differently, this doesn't align, but I become profoundly disappointed. I wonder whether anything I've learned is true or not, because this behavior is not aligning. And I feel like more than ever now, I think because one of the principles that I worked with when I was with the Institute for Spiritual Development was, the message is the message. And so when you hear something that resonates with you, if it resonates deeply, then that's what you walk away with. We're not responsible for somebody else's application of what we think that truth is. So it's not for me to judge, even if my teacher or my superior is behaving incongruously with that personally. Now, if I'm involved in sort of institutionalization of something that I don't agree with, well, then you have to take a stand.
Sure.
But I think it's a big deal. And I think I remember, with you, I remember, if I may, it was right around the time that you were with us, and then we had another organization come to us, and that seemed to resonate with you, and so you got involved, and this, and I know that one of your principles has always been, I need to be able to be me within whatever community context I'm serving, right? And so I don't necessarily want to be told what to do, and I don't want to be told how to think. That was a very important part of something that resonated with you. And this experience seemed that this community was a little more stringent on their rules and regulations. And, when it seemed like that was going against what your core values were, that's what, that was like not a red flag. This is not, this is just an organization that didn't seem to be aligning with how you wanted to live. And I feel like that's the point where we can catch ourselves and say, wait, yes, the ideas are here, and yes, this is fine if this is how other people want to be, but this is not something that I deemed as one of my core values. I'm actually going against a core value to ritualize something so deeply that I can't move away from it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that, coupled with the fact that we're involved in a life where it's very easy for others to point and call out, cultish behavior, or, following somebody, blindly. And it's also a life that can be exploited with us for those very reasons. So we always have to check and balance with each other.
Yes.
And, and I think a couple of rules of thumb I've heard are, when we align with a teaching, is the teaching a universal teaching, or is it the result of one person's text or literature? Like, are the quote unquote sacred texts of whatever we're involved with one person, or the result of, the compilation of many? So, if you're only following the words of one, one guru X, and that's all that you're listening to, and that guru and that teacher only refers to a very limited number of sources, then that's something to think about or be concerned about. Or if you're getting a language from that community, that only that community, or that community tells you it's the only language you can use to achieve this alignment or goal.
Right.
And that should be a red flag, because it's telling you that more people need to speak this language. You need to be more like me,
Right.
for your salvation, your alignment to happen. And that brings us right back to our resistance of our own organized, religion experiences, if we've come from that.
Right, which is really the same thing. I mean, all of it, even in religion, right? You must believe this. If you don't believe this, then um yeah, I think this happens to a lot of people. I don't think that this is very uncommon. And I think this happens across the board, that we feel disappointed by people that we looked up to. And, learning how to trust yourself over everyone else. And with each of these experiences that I had, I could hear inside of myself, like, "Mm-mm." Like, come on, Hilary. And it would ultimately take me a while to allow myself to leave the situation, because I didn't want to disappoint people, or I didn't, maybe I was wrong. And well, if I left, then where would my community be? Or where would, what would I do
Right.
next? Like, at that time, I didn't trust myself that I could be my own community. And this kind of brings me into something which I think is kind of interesting, so then I started doing my own thing, counseling, having groups and everything. And then I noticed that some people were guru worshiping me, which I never expected. And on one level, wow, that felt really nice. But on the other, I recognized what it was. And I was very upfront with people over the years of like, hey, and I still say this, and I say this right now to anybody who's watching. I am just like you. I have the same struggles. And just because I may know some information that's useful to help you make a better life does not mean that I am infallible, or I don't hurt, or I'm not weak in many areas. And I'm sure you can relate to this at being a reverend, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think what I've learned is that because again, we've been programmed to listen to others who were leading, spiritual experiences, that they have the answers. When you return the answer, which is the answer I think everybody should give, which is, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you believe? Uh, that's oftentimes very unsettling for many of us, because that's not what we've been told. So we're looking for something that goes beyond just what you believe. That sounds too free fall, too open ended to address. So it is hard when someone comes to me and I can tell, I'm saying, well, this is what's happening with you, and I can give you my insight, or this is what I believe is happening, based on information you've told me or based on my own experiences. But it's really about how, what are you feeling and believing? What we believe about ourselves is a big is a big issue in all this. What do we believe is really the question we should be asking ourselves
Yeah.
during all of these experiences. And can we exist in a space where there are differences of beliefs, or are those differences not welcome? And so it's always kind of assessing, wait, I don't necessarily believe this idea in this community. Is it one that is prohibitive for me engaging in it? Or is this one where it's like, it's welcome that we share these
Right.
differences, disagreements, ways to expand how we think about things?
Yeah, totally. And you can use that across the board. You can do that with your political figures, You just
Mhm.
because you align yourself with a certain party, or just because you align yourself with a certain leader and you have a lot of respect for him or her, when and if things come up that you're scratching your head, it's okay to not align with somebody. You don't have to buy into everything
Right.
that someone says. And I people from the time I was a little kid, people called me gullible. But as an adult, I really, and that really hurt my feelings actually. But as an adult, I realized it's trusting. It wasn't
Right.
gullible. I think I have a very pure heart that wanted to see the best in everyone. And but what I've come around to find is like I don't fault those people anymore. Like, because I would sort of guru worship, and then I would be so angry afterwards. Like, I can't believe this person did this or said this or is this. Like, I thought that they were this way and they're this way. And then I would
Right.
sort of be in this anger
Right.
state. But now I think I'm coming around to saying, you know what? They got egos, just like
Sure.
you.
And don't we understand what it's like? You say someone asks you a question and you answer the question in a way that they light up, and you've given that answer, and that you've seen the light bulb go off in your head. That feeds you, and
Yeah.
I certainly can empathize that the more you're asked as the source of this information, it must be like this to be a professor or a teacher. The more you have the
Yes.
answer, the more people attach to it. It is a process that just continues to feed more and more and more. It becomes harder to say what you think about it when you know that they're going to listen to you say, well, I think this, and I think you should do this. I sometimes will find myself saying that, and it's like I don't really mean it,
Right.
but I kind of do, So, um, because
Yeah.
I do think I have answers, and it's I have to check myself each time. But it does make me empathize more with those gurus, if they've gotten to a place where it seems like,
Right.
people are finding out things about them that we don't want to necessarily see.
Yeah, I think we attach to these messages. It's really, I guess it's like when a leader says something that we align with, we attach to it. And then when they say something that we don't align with, we get angry or whatever, but we come to realize the human of how that they are just humans. And I wanted to bring up a movie that I want to encourage you all to stream. It's on Amazon. Have you ever seen the movie Decoding Deepak?
No, no, I've heard about it. I have heard about it. Yes.
Oh, okay. So it's a movie that it's an older movie now, but this is about Deepak Chopra, who is, in our time, probably him and Wayne Dyer and maybe Louise Hay,
Louise Hay, right?
kind of like the biggies. And
Marianne
he's
Williamson.
always on the New York Times bestseller list. He's done very well. Well, he allowed his son to follow him around for a year and video um, the life of Deepak. And it's a really cool movie because what you come to find out is he very much has an ego. And in fact, there's a piece of this movie where he visits every year. He likes to talk about how he shuts it down and he goes to this Buddhist temple where he lays on a mat and he's just supposed to be quiet, no talking for like 2 weeks or something. And he talks about it a lot to the public. I'm going to go and, this is how I quiet within. Well, of course, they bring the cameras there and looking at his, back then it was a BlackBerry, and he's looking at his BlackBerry constantly to see where he's falling on the bestseller list. And his son says, Dad, I thought you're not supposed to have electronics here. Why are you looking at your electronics? And he's like, oh, I'm going to put it away. I just want to see this. Then the next scene, he's like complaining about his living conditions because he really feels he needs a cot, not to lay on a mat. And, first, and his son is like, well, first of all, you're supposed to be silent. And second of all, why are you not okay? This is what everyone's doing. And the whole movie, God bless Deepak because he approved that movie and it really made him to seem very fallible. So first when I saw it, I was like, I don't like him anymore. But the books that he's written are wonderful. And so for me, it's a really good depiction of, yeah, people aren't perfect. And yeah, they don't always follow the advice that they give out to the world. But that doesn't mean that what they have to say isn't important.
Right. I have not seen it, but I want to see it, and I will see it. And I do hear though from you discussing it, having not seen it, you have to ask, well, if the son was intending a hatchet job on his dad, the dad probably would never approved it. And I think that ultimately, what must have been the outcome of it, which is, look, millions of people follow you and read your books. I remember my first Deepak book. I remember how it, it aligned from a medical point of view, talk about it from Ayurvedic medicine, and each cell is its own life form that lives within us, which creates all these other life. I mean, it was just so revolutionary for me. But the sun is most likely showing the world, look, this don't, if you ever find this out about my dad, or if you see him on the street, or if he says something to you and it's not who you thought he was, he's still this person that has done this amazing thing. And when he probably did come from none of those things. He probably was, when he was young, in the group that was laying flat on the floor. And I think there's a level of like, you wouldn't be out in front. I wouldn't be here sitting in a recording that's going out to however many people if I didn't enjoy that part of it, the performative part of it, the attention part of it, the feeling that I can use that that love of being in front of people as a platform for talking about something that I feel helps people. So I don't want to deny that of him.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it sounds like the kid wants to show people, look, he's human, which means he's not coming from a point of view that he's better than you. And as for me, I always have to clarify, look, the aspiration for me is this. I would like to be this. I am not that. And when I speak of this this insight that I feel like I have, it is because I know in my heart that we are all one. I know in my heart that it is about love and connection, and remembering that I am you and you are me. I know that in my heart. Like I'm not. That's not a cultist thought. That's like it's the only thing that makes sense. My human experience of that, definitely not that on a moment to moment basis.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? Did I get stuck? Can you hear me?
yep, now you're here.
Okay. Isn't it interesting too? I don't know if you've experienced this, but I definitely have with people that I know, where if I am behaving poorly, they'll say something like, I thought you were so spiritual.
Oh yeah,
I thought you were so
yes,
spiritual. And it's like, it used to really rub me the wrong way when people would say that, because I would think to myself, like, okay, so I'm supposed to be perfect, like, because I'm a spiritual teacher. And my answer to that now is, hey, I'm human. I'm going through the same journey that you are, and this is who I am. I'm doing the best I can, and some days I get it right and some days I don't. But that also allowed me to have more compassion for gurus that kind of let me down, or I felt had let me down.
right.
Is just knowing what it feels like when people label me that way. So yeah,
Yeah, I had this habit of every time I came home from church and from leading a service, I find myself either like being totally foul mouthed, or being judgmental of somebody. And Wade would always say to me, "Oh, I guess you just came home from church," or that doesn't sound very ministerial. Like, and at first, I like you would bristle me, but the fact is, it's also a reminder. It's like, yes, we're human, but yes, we don't deserve the pass either. So it's like, yes, I'm human, but I also have to be reminded that my aspiration is this, and I'm never going to get there if I get defensive when I'm being reminded to be spiritual. So,
true.
yes, I'm human, and yes, I am just behaving the way I do. But if someone points it out, um, I can say, "Oh wow, thank you." It's been my great dream that my circle of friends, or spiritual super friends, as I like to call them, are at a place where we can trust each other enough to say that, to say, "Hey, we've just been shooting the breeze and we've been talking about nothing, and all of a sudden it turned, and we're starting to get a little more snarky than is acceptable." I would love for you to be able to say to me, "Oh, wow, okay, let's back off this a little. We're not in that
Yeah.
space that we say we're going to be in," because it does make me defensive. But in the end, it's what I said is my aspiration, so I can't ignore the reminder.
Right, right. So really, I think we're kind of coming to the end of our show. I think what we would want to leave you with, this is my thoughts, and then you give yours, is that I always think of the Wizard of Oz, and when the end of The Wizard of Oz, when Glinda the Good comes in and says, Dorothy, you've always had this power,
Yes.
and that really is true. Like, we are the guru. The problem is when we put all of our, um, what am I trying to say? When we put everything on these gurus, it prevents us from going inside and discovering what we feel and what we think. And that's the same with celebrities telling us what to wear, to put injections in our lips or whatever. We begin to lose sight of, who am I, and what do I feel? And, that was one of the reasons I decided to go gray. And certainly Kylie Jenner is not telling everyone to go gray, but my inner knowing was telling me to do that. And so it's about being brave and listening to that inner resonance that you have. And the only way you can hear that inner resonance is to stop putting all of your beliefs into the external world and starting to quiet down so that you can hear your own internal world. And I guess that would be what I would want to drive home, and also to have some compassion for people who do fall from their pedestals,
Yes.
and not be angry or disappointed in them. They're just human, just like you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, and knowing that if you are just kind of piggybacking off that, yes, to know what you believe, have the courage to ask what you believe, and also to know that that's going to change. So it is natural that if you hear words from somebody else that resonate, that you're going to have some things, get worked up. And that's okay. Like, how does it work? Like, okay, I may be moving to this belief now that I didn't have before. I may be shifting. So if we're not afraid that we've got to let everything go just because something new has entered into the picture, then I think we can kind of evolve more organically. And then we know we can be our own guru because we feel confident that we've taken in information and applied what is appropriate and let go what isn't. And that can come from anybody. You can get information from people that you find repulsive, but it still makes sense. Do you
That's
have the
right.
courage to just apply to what you believe? What do you believe? What do I believe?
I
So
love the wisdom that you just shared about the fact that your beliefs can change. They don't have to be set in stone. That is like that's good wisdom. That's very guru, Rob. But don't
yeah,
attach to Rob. Just learn from him.
right.
Um,
And I think it means that you don't have to say, "Oh my gosh, I believe this now," and then pivot a 180 and say, "I don't know how I believed that back then." You
right.
don't have to do that. You don't have to like shame where you've
Nope.
come from. You just apply it to where you are now.
Right. That's great. That's really great. Yeah. Well, I think we've said all we can say on this topic. We would love to hear from you guys.
Yes, please
And
comments,
when were you
everything.
stuck worshiping some celebrity or some guru or people that you know, and how did you get through it? Leave us a message in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you, and please follow us
Yes,
as
and
we
like and subscribe wherever you're getting this. If you're on a podcast, write a review. Yeah, engage with us in this dialogue so
yeah.
that we don't feel like we are your gurus, that we are engaging in a community that we're all experiencing together.
Yep. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.